live. So we are live now, and that's just the way it's going to be. Hello, hey there, hi there, ho there. It's me. It's me, Bear, Gen X GM. How the fuck are you? Look at that. I swore in the first 30 seconds. Not monetized. Don't care. And we got Logan with us. Chris Hill, G.I. Joe Gamer. Jesus, man. Pick a name. Pick a lane. Come on, man.
Hi, anyone will do.
No. Pick one and live by it. Cody, see, GM Cody. We know who the hell that is. Always. Come on, from Ages Musings. How you doing, Sean?
I am good, and that's Merlister Gandalor to you, buddy.
That's my bag of never mind to you, dude. Hey, Mike Percival. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing all right. My best to you and the Ruby. All right, guys, just a little bit of business before we start the night. We are broadcasting on 4 channels. Mine is the primary channel, and then Merlin's Minister's Brandon is on his channel, and Cody's on his, and Logan's on his. Hey, Jason. Hey, Hungar. Hey, Chris. Hey, Spine. Hey, Donna. Anyway, the point is we are doing what we try and do every time, which is not try and take over the world, but try and raise $100 in super chats so we can give away 2 $25 drive-through RPG chats. We haven't succeeded yet. We came really close one time, and that was awesome. Let's see if we can do it tonight. But just remember, if you're on Sean's channel, don't do the super chat there. Come on over to my channel and super chat it there. Otherwise, he has to wait for it to go, and then we have a whole headache about it. So super chats here. We reach $100 tonight. We are going to give away two $25 drive-through RPG gift cards. Why 2 $25, not 4? Because Google takes 30% off the top. That'll be $50 for the 2 cards. The remaining $20 or whatever, I can buy a pizza. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be nice. I'll get a pizza. Pizza.
Sacred pizzas.
Let's eat some sacred pizzas. So, and who else we got? We got Baron G Rock. How you doing, Rock? Baron G Rock in the house. Johnny GM, the Dungeon Minister. Padre, nice to see you. Boigas. Yeah, we're going to eat some sacred boigas. That's right. All right. So let's get down to it. Let's not keep people waiting. Let's dive in. What is the point of this conversation? Well, it's levels and classes and hit points. Oh, my. It's the idea that D&D has been plagued by what are considered to be the sacred cows of D&D for a very long time. They keep getting dragged into each new edition despite years and years of game design showing us that we have been able to advance beyond the limitations of these things, though some people are able to say that they're not limitations, they're not bugs, they're features. I want to discuss that. I want to talk about that, and I want to know what you guys in the chat think. I want to know what the panel thinks, and I want us to keep it nice. No edition warring, no thread crapping, and no name calling, unless I'm doing it. And all 3 things are available if I do it at that point in time, because it's my show. It's your show, Barry. It's your show. No, we're going to be nice. We're going to play nice. And that's how we're going to keep it tonight. So we're going to start right away, boys. And we're going to pick the first of the sacredest of cows. The most sacred of cows, I would think, in D&D. Character classes. All right. We'll start with Chris and work our way around. Chris, what is your take on the sacred cow known as the character class? Is it a good thing, a bad thing, an indifferent thing? Are there strengths? Are there weaknesses? Does it tie you up? Does it let you free? What do you got?
I used to like classes, but the thing about the classes is that they're kind of restricting as far as I'm concerned. I prefer options, and classes really don't give you options. I would rather have a little bit less structure as far as what you're playing, as far as your job or your adventuring title, and a little just a little bit more freedom to do what you want as a character. That's kind of my take on classes. They're not bad, and they work, and I love AD&D. Not so much other things, but like, and the old Beck me that when your race was your class 2, that was pretty cool. It's just very limiting as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but now, so what is it about classes you like, and what is it about classes you don't like?
I like, I'll use Ranger as an example because that was my favorite. Okay. I loved a lot of the things that you could do as a Ranger. You could use a weapon in each hand. You could track. You were a great warrior. And, at some point, in second edition, at least, you had a few spells. And I know in first edition, it was kind of weird. You had divine and arcane spells. But
You got druid, then arcane spells, yes.
Exactly. So it was kind of weird. But it was neat to play a ranger. And so what I liked about classes is you could pick the ones that suited you. And the ones that you didn't, you could just ignore, as far as I'm concerned. So classes can work, but I just think they're just too rigid.
Too rigid. So you like them, but they're too rigid, too restricting, too binding. They're like an old pair of pants you used to wear in college that you try and put on now, and boy, oh boy, that was a mistake. Okay, cool.
Definitely.
Cody, where do you stand on the class thing? By the way, guys, in the chat, throw in your comments on this. We're happy to jump up and jump into what you got to say. Don't forget, super chats are active. Hit them. Get us up to 100. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah. So character classes in D&D, I think, are great for what D&D is. D&D is a very specific type of role-playing game, and it fits into a very specific milieu, right? So, character classes in D&D, it's a party-based game, and everybody's working together, and you fill a role. And that's what I like about character classes in D&D is nobody is, everybody's really good at one thing, or they're kind of good at a bunch of things, but nobody's good at everything. So you can do that with like a point-based system or whatever, but at the end of the day, even with a point-based system, you're kind of still doing the same thing, right? The person comes up with a concept and they start spending their points, and usually what ends up happening is they're just creating a character class in the end. So yeah, it's a little restrictive, but I think it fits really well with the concept of D&D, where you're a party, you're working together, and everybody has to play a role in the party. The thief has to check for traps and, sneak around and scout ahead. And, the fighter obviously is going to be up front fighting, and the magic users going to be casting spells that are going to be useful for everybody. And the clerics, can fight a little bit, and, it's going to heal people. And then you've got the classes in between, like a paladin that's got a little bit of cleric and a little bit of fighter, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, I really like that aspect of D&D. I think it's a cool aspect. Now, does it work in every game? No. Does it work with every type, of game you want to run? No. Is it restrictive? Yes. But overall for D&D, I think it works great. I don't, I wouldn't, if you broke away from classes, it wouldn't be D&D anymore to me.
Okay. Fair. Sean?
I'm in aligned mind with Cody there. The thing about classes in D&D is that they are very specifically archetypes of the genre. So they are there for a specific reason. Now, in terms of being married to them from a game purpose, I'm indifferent. Having a class is not a sacred cow. Having a skill-based system is not a sacred cow to me. All of that is just, what is it for the game? But I do like the idea of the class because they do give you a focus. It's like, am I the warrior of the group? Am I the thinker, aka the wizard, or the priest, or what have you? So yeah, I mean, I enjoy the class-based system for that reason. You get that specific focus that player can choose and go. Whereas on the flip side of that, when players can build their characters, build their skills, new players especially might be lost. Mm-hmm. Right? As a class-based system, it's like, well, I want to be a warrior. Okay, well, here you go. Take the fighter. It's easy peasy. You can maybe do a little customization from there. You might say, well, I want to be a dexterity-based fighter, an agile guy, not a big brawler. It's like, yeah, you can still do that, but not a problem. But you're still a fighter. That is your main skill.
Okay. I'm in the middle on this one. I see the benefit of classes. I also see the restrictions of classes. I've seen analysis paralysis. I've seen boredom set in. I've seen the resulting boom of character classes and subclasses in various editions because of the boredom that sets in. I've seen the abuse of multi-classing that's gone on in 3rd edition onwards, where people have basically been trying to make the character they want to make by taking levels, dips as they like to call it, dip into a class for a little bit to get some of the stuff they want. And I think honestly, if you had a talent tree system at that point in time, you could get rid of all that. But I also agree that the archetype is a benefit. I think the archetype can help us. I'm the sneaky guy. I'm the violent guy. I'm the magic casting guy. I'm the pointless spiritual guy, because I still think clerics are the most useless class ever created in a goddamn role-playing game. But I think paladins are awesome. Clerics, not so much.
Well, we can fight over that later.
Oh, we will. We'll do that later, because it is sacred murder. So for me, I can sort of see both sides of the argument. I know when in designing Bastard Sword, originally I had classes. Then I got rid of them. I just had talent trees. And now I've come back around to having foci or focuses, because it is a word. You can say focuses, by the way, because we're not speaking Latin. And the focuses I have right now are martial, magical, and expertise, right? So that sort of can help you build your character, and it'll determine what talent trees are available to you. And you can have more than one and stuff like that. But the idea is that it will allow for players to feel more a role, I guess, within the group, like Sean was saying. Like, it'll give them a clear way to go. So I can see the benefit, but I can also see the downside to it. And I currently don't feel any version of D&D official, I'm not talking hacks, I'm talking official D&D, has addressed the issue properly, that doesn't end up with class and or now subclass bloat to try and cover off the various themes and flavors that people want to have. And Pathfinder's in that same boat, by the way. So that's my thought on that. So that's one sacred cow. I guess we will call this one non-burgered. This one will continue to live in the field and graze and perhaps even give milk at some point in the future. I don't know, but we're not going to make leather boots out of it just yet. It's not abuse. It's strong-arming the system to bow to your will. Wow, you have a very strange relationship with role-playing games there, Baron G. Rock. My question is, character classes changed since the old days? Is that a real issue? Yes, character classes have changed dramatically, or dramatically, take your pick, since the old days. I mean, the original was Fighting Man, Cleric, and Wizard.
Magic,
right?
Man of Magic, yeah.
User.
Man of Magic, yeah. Then they added Thief.
Thief and Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And they added Paladin and Greyhawk.
Paladin and Greyhawk. And then we just kind of chilled on that for a long time.
Well, Blackmore introduced the monk and the assassin.
But Blackmore wasn't official D&D, was it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
The monk and the assassin come in.
And
so now we're up,
Druid, maybe?
I thought Drew didn't get introduced till AD&D.
No, it was in original D&D, but I can't remember if it was in the Blackmore supplement or in Strategic Review. Okay. And then Ranger got introduced in Strategic Review.
So you got that. So we're up to 8 classes. Then we get to basic D&D, and we're back down to 3 or 4 plus the races class options. Then we go to AD&D, and the field starts to open up again. We get to 2nd edition, it opens up even more. 3rd edition, the race is on, baby. We're going over the hill. And if you look at BECMI, over the period of time BECMI existed with all the expansion material, Jesus, there's like 30 classes in BECMI, man. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are subclasses, though. Like, you have to get to a certain level. Like, you have to get to 9th level to become a druid, right? So
yeah, but if you go into all the gazetteers, they put tons of racist class stuff in those gazetteers that you can play.
Right. Okay.
So they just expanded. But I saw a list one time when I was looking for a BECMI Ranger. No, I was looking for BECMI Half Elf, and I found a list of all the BECMI classes. Jesus Christ, it was a huge list. It was massive. It was massive. And then 4th edition tried to change how classes worked and sort of take them in different directions with roles. And then 5th edition, tried 10 classes. Then they had the Artificer, so 11 classes. And then how many bloody subclasses are there now in 5th edition?
Quite a lot.
5,000, 16,473 billion. Like, it's insane.
You do the math. If you take the player's hand, the 5th edition player's handbook alone, no expansions, just the core player's handbook, there are over 600 race and class options in that book alone. So if anybody tells me they've played everything, I can just punch them because they're idiots.
Yes. Well, that just that's just my standard default operating procedure when people talk to me now. It's just, excuse me, sir, you know what time it is? Leave me alone.
So you're not coming to visit anytime soon, are you?
I'm planning it. I got actually next weekend. I'll come up. You better move fast. All right. So Dungeon Minister says, been distracted. Don't know if I don't know if this was mentioned, but I like the cultural aspect of class, i.e. guilds and all that sort of thing. That's certainly something you can look at. That's certainly a benefit. It does give you a niche within the world, hopefully. So
a cleric by definition would belong to a church, and there's an organization right there.
Yeah, that's true. Speak, priest. But yeah, we're going to agree. Classes, not necessarily good, not necessarily bad. They are what they are. They exist. Okay. And Dale says cleric because Dale just wanted to say cleric. All right. Next sacred cow on the block. New cow on the block. Levels. All right. We'll start with Sean and go backwards to Chris this time.
I'm okay with it. But I'm okay with playing a game that doesn't have levels. So long as, the key thing is you have something systemic in place to track your progress. A level is one way to do that. I know not a lot of people there's some people who don't like it, but I do like experience points and I like levels. What Fifth Ed does, or the more modern games do that I don't like, is somebody invented this concept of we can't have a dead level where nothing happens other than hit points. I hate that. I like the older games where your growth is very incremental. So levels 1 to 3 in basic, for example, you're effectively the same level fighter. You don't get any like THACO bonuses or anything like that. All you get is a hit point increase until level 4. That allows for more you can have better level or a greater level disparity between your classes. That way, if like you got a level 4 fighter, everybody else is level 1 or 2, they're not that much far ahead. Whereas you got like 5th edition, you've got a level 4 fighter and everybody else level 1. He's light years ahead. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, it makes plenty of sense.
So, yeah. But beyond things like that, no, I don't mind levels because they're a good, solid, easily understood, systemic way of tracking your progress.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, Cody.
Yeah, in D&D, I like levels. I can do it without them, in a game. I play plenty of games that don't have levels, but I think it's a really, really great measure of how powerful your character is, and also how powerful other things in the world. I can say this is level 10 and that's level 20, and we understand the disparity between those two levels, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really simple and easy. Besides, I have 120 character points and that's got 1,250 character points. Well, I can see the disparity there, but if it's a little bit closer, it's going to be a little bit hard.
I can't see I can't see the disparity.
I can't see the disparity.
More points than the other. Yes.
It's obviously has 1,000 more.
You say that as if you've played Champions.
Yeah. Oh, I have. Yes. Yeah. But yeah. So I think levels are great and fine. And in D&D, I wouldn't want to go without them because it's D&D, and I think that's just part of Dungeons and Dragons. And if you don't want levels, play another game. There's plenty of other games that don't have levels. I don't think it works fine.
Fair. All right, Mr. Logan.
Well, we just had a big discussion about what's in a level on my channel on Monday, and what I'm glad about coming on here is because I didn't really get much feedback on people who liked levels because they preferred my system where I don't use levels at all. So this is going to be some nice feedback because levels just lost on my channel. I do agree that levels work for Dungeons and Dragons. I enjoyed playing Dungeons and Dragons, but I found that the world doesn't know what level your character is. So I just did away with them altogether, and I just didn't see the need for them because if you do game session increases, it effectively is the same thing without having to worry about what level your character is or only getting hit points here and there, and when you leveled up. And with D&D, I like when you first started out how you got a lot of hit points, but once you hit like 10th level after name level of 9th level, a wizard only got 1 hit point, and if your saving throws didn't really increase very well. I find the incremental session based increases much better than level.
Okay. Interesting. What do you guys think about the difference between old school D&D having the differing experience points per class and 30 plus everybody advances at the same level all the time? What do you guys think about that?
I prefer the old ways for a variety of reasons, but I don't hate on the new way. I get why it's there. You know, a unified chart, again, easier for players to track. The difference in the play style is that it really much necessitates for modern games that everybody is relatively the same. Whereas in the older systems, you can get away with level disparity. You can get away with a new character coming in at level 1 onto a 5th level group, and they can still participate. You do that with 5th ed, you can't get away with that so much because they're so outclassed.
Okay.
And like a 1st level thief coming in joining a 5th level group, he's going to rock it up and catch up in no time.
True. I mean, if you're playing a 14th level party and one guy dies and, well, here's your new level 1 character. Oh, man, dude, you're going to be like 6th level in like 5 sessions.
Right. And that's, I mean, a lot of players will complain. It's like, oh, I got to start over and say, but the role-playing opportunity is there. Hey, you're the rookie of the group. That is a character choice you can make. Right, you're the new eager beaver to this established group of pros. You know, you don't have to be equal to everybody. Make it a character choice to say, okay, well, I want to learn from these guys. These guys are amazing, right?
Okay.
You're still above the 0 levels, and I've seen 0 levels thrive with high level groups who treat them as people, not as bags of hit points that they can put in front of their PCs. You know, you get a party of good characters who are acting in character will treat their 0 level NPC retainers like people, not like meat shields, right? And the same applies to a new character coming in who's at level 1, whether it's somebody who just died or a new player or whatever. They're the rookie in the group. All right, well, you can guard our horses, or here's a bow. You stay back and cover us, right? There's still a role, even though there's a massive level disparity. And in the older system, it accommodated that a lot better.
Okay. Let's just deal with a couple of chat things before we go on. Eli says character point build systems are hard to balance. I hate that word because so often those come down to system literacy rather than set of progressive levels. I agree 100%. The biggest offender for that is not surprisingly champions, but mutants and masterminds. Dear God, like system mastery in that game is the key. Dungeon Minister says, again with the guilds, it's a way to make levels an in-game feature, and he followed that with Journeyman Electrician. I agree, but then that does reduce the ability to have nepotism and things like that role play out in the guild, where that level 1 asshole who happens to be the brother of the count is suddenly now, you know, an assistant guild master because of his connections. Or maybe that's a feature for the game. Who knows? Insert name here says it's all the breakdown of real world obscurity into numbers for easy digestion and classification, be it a strength of 16 or a level 6 fighter. Levels help people understand if you're an amateur or a vet. Yes and no. I mean, you know, the player's the player at the end of the day, right? The character may be things, but the player's the player. And if we're dealing with also the old OSR mentality, it doesn't matter what level you are, because if you can't play that character, it's not going to go over so well. And then we got 2 from Dale, who says he's a bag of hit points. And I guess you get those at the Dollar General in Texas. You get those bags of hit points. They're made up of pork shoulder or something. I don't know. And then, of course, being the ever funny guy he is, he also added another round of cleric. All right, let's see if we got anything else. James says he agrees with Elfbait character points because you can spend a lot of points on role-playing. Role-playing? Why would you do that? Non-combat features. Well, that's silly. And make it hard to determine your relative combat ability levels, make it easier. And that's something we do have to deal with, is the fact that 99% of role-playing games are very combat-focused, very combat-centric, and most of the balance issues are going to come around that particular thing. Mechhead Studios is just trying to find his way into my heart by saying I prefer the way Star Wars systems where players use their XP to advance their characters. That's neither here nor there for this conversation, but I do approve and disapprove of that system. Dungeon Minister answers me by saying, you can have nepotism named a higher level, but everyone knows darn well he didn't earn it. Happens all the time. I'm sure it doesn't. Never in the world have I ever seen that. Hello, Squirrel Hermit. We're not on hit points yet, Dungeon Minister. We're not there yet. Slow down, buddy. Slow down. Slow down. We're still on levels. All right, Cody, any thoughts on the balance issue of advancing classes at different rates or the uniform advancement rate?
Well, so I mean, I've played literally every edition of D&D. So variable experience points, it's just a different take on D&D. It was supposed to be a balance thing, right? You know, the magic users are really powerful, but you know, they take a long time to level up. You know, the fighters somewhere in the middle. That's the way it's supposed to be. The thief is weaker, but he levels up really quickly.
And the clothies were squishy. That was the point. You could kill clothies very easily.
But it was supposed to be a balance thing, and it works fine. I mean, you know, with all my experience of playing old school D&D, I've never had an issue with it. It seems to balance out just fine. You know, once you get into third edition and everybody's, you know, leveling up the same, that works fine too. But they had to balance other things out. So spells aren't as good as they are in old school D&D. You know, they made spells nerfs. They had nerf spells a little bit and nerfed some other things. Had to nerf the paladin, right? You know, so it's one or the other, right? You either got to nerf, you know, character class features, or you gotta, you know, have more experience points to level up. So I don't have a problem with the variable experience point system at all. It seems to work fine every time I've used it.
Yeah, I agree on that one. There we go. Chris, before we jump into you, Dungeon Minister did say it's all connected. Insert picture of crazy guy with wall full of pins and yarn connections. There you go. And then Dale, of course, being Dale, added in the role-playing parts of the game are just connective tissue to get to the killing parts. Oh, Dale, I look forward to murdering all your characters in all my games now. Oh, wait, I was already looking forward to that. Hello, crafting gamer. Nice to see you. Guys, we still haven't had a single super chat yet tonight. I really want to give away some drive-through RPG cards. If you can do it, do it. If you can't, don't. I understand, but you know, it certainly helps out and makes us have more fun. And you know, people get prizes, which is always a good thing. All right, Logan. Variable, static. What do you prefer on the XP?
I'm kind of torn in the middle of that. And on my panel, I showed the character advancement for 5e was everybody did the same, and they were kind of shocked by the quick advancement of first through third level. Because when you look at second edition D&D is what we looked at, the advancement was all over the place, and I actually prefer that, but it was split with everybody on my panel, so it's hard for me to say which is better. Because I prefer the old stuff, so that's where I sit on it. It was just easier to have your XP for your thief and your XP for your wizard. And when you were that class, you knew what you were going for. But with the new one, for me, everybody's the same, you know. And it just, I'm not one for everybody's the same, because in real life, everybody's not the same.
What?
They can't
You're
be
canceled, mister. Hashtag canceled.
No, I don't agree. Everybody's the same. I'm seeing 3 windows for 3 identical people. Like, you guys are clones, man.
It's totally true.
Well, Doc, I'm going to put my hat on backwards then, just so I'm not like
Cody can scrap in a bar just as well as I can, sir, and have the same effective ability. Thank you, Squirrel. That's awesome. Wow. Okay, so thank you, Crafting Gamer. Guys, if you are in Sean's chat, try to do super chats over here, because otherwise it just creates an economy between Sean and I where we have to swap money back.
I got to send him money yet.
Yeah. But hey, Squirrel Hermit, man, that's awesome. $20. Okay, so we are at 22, which puts us $78 away from giving away 2. Count them, 2.
Got to give him a Ric Flair woo.
I'm sorry, what? What?
Got to give him a Ric Flair.
Woo!
There you go.
No, that's not it. Never Ric Flair. That has to be one of those, yeah, that's how we do it. Uh-huh. That's what you need. It's always going to be better when it's Macho Madness. All right, so I'm going to tell you my feeling on the XP tables. I prefer old school. I prefer... that shelf's a little tight. Having to bust out something like this to build the classes I want to build, and then have variable XP tables based on it. That matters to me. That's more fun because it's going to lead into our next topic. Hi, Beans. What are you doing, Beans? You just going to walk through? Okay, you do.
Topic is beans? Oh, okay.
Beans.
I was
The next
expecting
topic
that,
is-
but
Okay, so guys, Beans. Yes or no? Do we keep them or do we turn them into a burger?
turn them into a character class in your next game.
Oh, annoying cat. You want to be an annoying cat in the next game, buddy? Yeah, you do. Okay, so I like them. I like the varying levels for stuff. I think it absolutely policed wizards and kept them in a really, really nice place where they had to earn their magic, earn their survival, and that way you didn't have a bunch of level 20 wizards running around in your campaign because not a lot of them made it that far. Because I'm level 1. Pew! And I got a dagger. And
Yeah,
hit points if I
but
rolled hot.
their pew was often a nuke, relatively speaking.
Not at first level.
Even at first level, you got sleep. That was it.
Yeah, that's one puke, one nuke once a day, and then once it's off, it's done. You know,
Yeah,
what I mean?
but that one nuke will save your party's bacon. I've seen it
If
happen
used
countless
properly.
times.
Yes, but I've also seen. Okay, we're gonna argue about this. We can argue about this, Sean. I've seen plenty of fucking idiot players who blow their spell in the first round, and now have the rest of the day to go through.
You're not wrong, but that's the player. That's not the strength of the class or the spell.
Oh my god, the OSR nonsense begins. It's not that's the player, not the strength of the class. Fuck off.
That's exactly.
You know, that's-
you just
you know I
called
don't-
you called them idiot players.
Yes,
You
yes,
agree.
they're idiot players playing a class that they don't know how to play, but it doesn't change the fact that the class does have that limitation built into it, which can easily affect the player's fun. If someone wants to have fun at the game and they're sitting on this spell, but they're going, well, I can't cast it. I once ran a D&D game for two of my brother-in-laws and one of their brothers. So I guess he's technically a brother-in-law. I don't know how it works out. And he wanted to play a wizard. And he spent the entire module going, can I do my spell now? And the other guys were going, no, wait, don't waste it. And it was no fun for him. He didn't enjoy the game at all because he wanted to pew a spell. And this was the 80s. This wasn't a video game mentality. It's just the nature of the beast. But back to the point, I like that policing of the wizard, the magic user. I like it.
Mhm.
I think clerics are an abomination in the eyes of God and man, but that's just me. And I think paladins cover that role much better, especially considering they won't get spells until far later in their career, at which point they've earned that really fantastic thing. Cantrips suck. They're spammable powers in 5e, and I don't care for them personally. I think they're abusive and overpowered, especially stuff like chill touch and stuff that does like a d8 damage. That's a goddamn cantrip. It's like whoa, guys. That's a level 2 spell in the old days. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to side on the levels have use, but I prefer the variable XP. So we're going to call that one a burger and maybe a nice pair of boots for Cody because I think he could use some new boots. So there we go. All right, let's move on to the next sacred cow, which brings us back to class, but ties into level and all that fun stuff, which is the never-ending debate: race as class, race and class.
Yes.
Chris, we're starting with you. Where do you sit on this one?
I like both. To me, class, race, it didn't really matter once you start role playing. Does it really matter what your class is or what your race is? I mean, yeah, it does for an aesthetic purpose, but ultimately we're just role playing. And to differentiate between the race and class, it was nice. It gave you more options, and I preferred that. But playing a regular BX elf was cool. Playing a BX halfling was cool. So for me, it didn't really matter. But that's why I kind of did away with classes and levels, because I feel that the role-playing aspect needs that little extra that a player puts into it.
Fine. Fair enough. Cody, what do you think?
Sorry, I had to burp.
Yeah, we heard.
Stay classy, Cody. Stay classy.
Oh, always. I'm always classy, sir.
Put the ass in
so-
racist class.
Yes. Racist class. So one thing I want to say about classes is I'm a big fan of like just the basic classes in D&D. And I think you can really imagine anything out of those 4 classes. The fighter, the cleric, the thief, and the magic user. I'm a huge fan of that system. And so, and I'm a huge fan of BX. It's probably, if I had to like, if push come to shove, if somebody's like, what's your favorite edition? What's your favorite edition? It's probably going to be BX. And so the races class thing I thought was pretty cool. Because I always imagine the demi-human races anyways, as you know, they're very stereotypical. You know, they fit into these really tight tropes, and it's really cool that they, you know, when you're playing BX, they really do, because you know the magic user or the elf is the magic user and a fighter, and they're kind of weird and strange, and you know, the door, you know, so they have their own feel to them, and they really play out the tropes of those races. And you know, classes race separate is fine too, you know, so I don't have a problem with it, but it's a different feeling. So it's whatever kind of feeling you want to go for. And when I'm running a D&D campaign, I pick which edition of D&D I'm going to run based on what kind of feeling I want for the campaign, because each edition is going to give you a different feel, I think. Right. So if you're going to play BX, it's going to be a totally different feel than AD&D second edition or third edition D&D or whatever, you know. So, and BX has a very specific feel, and I like that feel. It's really cool, but it's very specific, and it is restrictive, but it's not restrictive in the role-playing sense, you know, because I can play an elf completely different than what somebody else is going to play an elf. My class is not going to determine how I'm going to imagine and play that character. Or even a fighter. I can be a, you know, there might not be a ranger in BX, but I can play a ranger. I'll just be a fighter and just say, you know, I grew up in the woods and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, a good DM is going to say, okay, well, you know, he's probably going to give you a bonus to surprise in the woods. And, you know, you know how to hunt and you know how to fish, and you might have some dealings with the elves and the fairies and whatnot.
Starting to sound like house rules there, sir.
Not really. That's just DM Fiat, which is
Flavor.
DM Fiat starting to sound like third edition talk, sir. I can do this all day.
Do what? What?
What?
That makes no
All right.
sense. DM Fiat has been there from the beginning.
Now.
Yeah.
Hello, Catherine. Everybody say hi to the only lady who dared show up in this den of iniquity.
Hello,
All right.
Catherine.
Sean.
Well,
Race class, raises class.
I loves me some race class split. Ultimately, that's the preferred way to play. But I admit I have warmed up to races class. I thought I'd moved on from it when I walked away from basic back in the 80s and then playing old school essentials. I was like, you know what? There's merit to it, especially. You know, I've started sort of assessing players in the past year and a half of who are committed to the game and who are more casual. And when you get a game of casuals, the race as class is ultimately the better way to go, because it's less work for the players who aren't going to do that work. Whereas if you have a more nuanced game with more details, then, you know, you'll have the committed players who will do that work. You know, how many times have you played games where you have to remind the players of what their abilities are? Because they, and it's not a new player, but somebody who's been at it for a while who should know better. So I have found from a practical perspective, the races class is great for that, because it is simpler, it is easier, it's more graspable for the casual player who's not going to put in the full work to learn the nuances of a role-playing game, especially a complex one like AD&D, which has so much cooking, including the race class split, which also comes with its own set of rules for multi-classing, for multiple hit points, level limits, all that sort of thing.
All right. I live on the I was race and class for the longest time. I thought that was the advancement of the game that made the most sense, much like the roll high single mechanic made sense. All that made sense. Then I discovered BX and kind of found my favorite edition of D&D because it had modularity. I could put things in. It made me really happy. So I could put feats in. I know, ooh, sacrilege. I don't care. And more importantly, it sold me and brought me back around once I read the reason for races class existing, which was basically Gygax, I guess, would be the one, or maybe it was Moldvay or whatever, that thought that you should be, like in Lord of the Rings, mostly humans. So that elf you meet is like the only elf you're going to meet for the most part, and they would be a representation of a generic elf. And I thought about that, and I said, that's pretty good. But then I said, we're kind of pigeonholing elves and halflings and dwarves and what have you. So I got into the idea of, I like the idea once again of using this to build race classes. So instead of having a dwarf wizard, we'll have a dwarven stone crafter who can do cool magic stuff with rock, and instead of having an elf ranger, we'll have an elven green singer who's a little bit of a druid, a little bit of a ranger, and they do those cool elven-y type things, or maybe an elven warden who patrols the woods or whatever. You can do that and give something to the character specifically for the player, specifically for them, that could make it more fun and make them feel special and give them their niche. I find the genericity of race and class has become a cancer in D&D for me, and we see that clearly in 5th edition because it permeates into the setting as well. Races now, for me, become hats that people wear because they don't act any differently. For the most part. They're just I'm an elf who's a ranger, but you're really a ranger, not an elf. You just like the bonuses of the elf and the pointy ears, but ultimately you act exactly like a human.
Humans in funny hats.
Yeah. So I sort of went the other way, and I feel pretty good about that, which leads me to my next. So that one's a sacred cow for me. I'm not touching racist class. If you want race and class, you can eat that burger, but I'm not having that. That's not for me. Jesus Christ. That was good. That was really good, Tabletop Crusaders. Okay, so this leads me to my next one, armor class. Now, there's a couple of points on armor class I want to discuss. One, the armor makes you harder to hit mentality of armor class is the first one we'll touch on. Then we'll go on to the Thaco versus Ascending. But so let's start on that one. And Sean, you'll pick us up when we go back around the hoop. How do you feel about armor class versus damage reducing armor?
I'm fine with it. It's a system. And I'll have this response for a lot of your sacred cows. As long as you've got a solid system in place to resolve the issues that are in the game, and you can do so fairly efficiently, then it's going to work, even if it doesn't kind of align with our view of how real world should work. Like, yes, armor reducing damage is maybe more in line with what we know of how the real world works. But if you're going to do it that way, then create a system that represents that. The armor class system for avoiding damage works just fine. I think we talked about this briefly. I don't know if you were there on DM James's stream the other day, because he was asking about damage reducing armor. Now I use in AD&D, I do use this aspect of Unearthed Arcana, where you have the field and full plate armor that have damage reduction as well as the normal AC values. And it works fine. It's very expensive. And they basically reduce full plate armor reduces 1 point per die of damage done. To a certain maximum, I believe it's 26, and then the armor is diminished. But again, it's all part of the system. You could argue that 5th edition sort of does that, because they've changed the number. In old school, in first ed, in old school D&D, you had a lesser threshold of hitting, but the damage was usually catastrophic if you took a hit, because you had a lower threshold of hit points, right? Whereas 5th edition does the opposite. It's easier to score a hit, but you have so many more hit points, so you're just attacking bloated bags of hit points, right? You could argue that that's exactly what armor doing reduced damage would be. You're just transferring the hit points from your character to your armor.
Okay.
So it's all kind of the same in the wash when you think about it mathematically. You're just sort of processing it different in your brain. Oh, the armor is taking the damage. Well, it's still hit points that you're tracking.
Yeah, I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Okay, Monsieur Cody.
Oui. So yeah, I agree with Sean. Armor class is just a system, and so is damage reduction. Neither one is realistic, by the way. If you think it is, you're wrong. That's not how armor works. It depends on the type of armor and what kind of weapon you're using. So if you want to get realistic, if we're trying to be realistic here, it's going to be a very gritty. I mean, it's going to be a very complicated system,
Yeah.
right? Because you got to factor in what kind of weapon you're using against what type of armor,
So,
and even
Harnmaster.
yeah, it's going to be Harnmaster level of complexity here to determine how armor actually works. Because I don't think people, well, I think more people nowadays realize it because of YouTube and physical research and whatnot. But there is a drastic difference in disparity in different types of armor and arms. And there's a reason why, there was different kinds of armor being made and different types of weapons, and through the Dark Ages, through the late medieval period, because they were trying to defeat certain types of armor. So, either one works for me. I think armor class is fine. I also like the damage reduction system, and I've also used systems that use both. I think it was the 3rd edition Unearthed Arcana that had an option to do both. They had an armor class. You had like a defense rating or an armor class rating, but you also had damage reduction, and we used that for the longest time, and it worked just fine. So yeah, I have no problem with either one of them. One thing I do have a problem with defense in D&D. I prefer something like Warhammer Fantasy, where you actually can parry blows. Instead of just depending on your armor class, that's actually more where your defenses should be, is in your actual combat prowess. If, in my opinion, I really like role-playing systems that depict that more than, you're just dependent on for what it is. Armor class works just fine. So,
Okay, Chris.
Well, I liked armor class. That's all I knew when I first started playing games, and it really worked for AD&D. But when I started designing my system, it just didn't. I don't find it all that complicated. You have your armor, you have your agility or your dexterity, whatever you want to call it. Same thing. You put it all together, and some of your magical bonuses. That's your defense. That's what it requires to hit. I don't know why it's all that complicated. It should just be a simple game mechanic. It's a number. It's all numbers.
I have to answer this. Give me a second. I will
No
talk
problem.
about this. If these answers are getting longer as the night goes on, says Dale. Yes, and your quips are getting less funny. So trade-off.
The subjects are getting more complex as well. So
Exactly. I agree with you on that. I was a big armor class proponent until first time I played Cyberpunk and saw the defensive role, and I was like, OMG. What a game changer. But I also never believed in the 1 minute round, right? I always thought that was the silliest thing, because no one that I ever played with used a 1 minute round. It was like, I'm gonna stab him. It's like, it wasn't, I'm going to unleash a series of blows as I move across the ballroom floor and attempt to open up no one I ever role played with ever on any end of Montreal to Vancouver ever played the game like that. It's like, I try and hit him. I'm going to try and jump over the table and punch him, whatever. So I like defense. In 3rd edition, I saw the alternate idea for, why does the to hit bonus go up, but the defense bonus never goes up. So when they introduced that idea as an optional rule of you, depending on your class, you would get a defense bonus based on level. I like that. It made you harder to hit. And then that tied in perfectly to damage reducing armor, where you had a static defense or even a flexible defense, which was 10 plus your dex mod or your dexterity plus your whatever mod, whatever the case, you could figure it out. And that became the target number to hit you, but the armor protected you from the actual hit at the end. And then I discovered active defense and was even happier, because now you're trying to get out of the way of being hit, like the parry, the block, the dodge, the duck, whatever you want to have. Duck, dodge, duck, dive.
Duck Dodgers!
The point being is that I'm very much on the damage reducing defensive active defense side of this argument. I'm done with armor class as a whole. But if we're going to use armor class, ascending or Thaco?
yes,
Thank you.
I know. I'm so useful to this.
You are. Wait, you spelled it wrong. Useless is how you pronounce that word, sir. So Chris, Thaco, we'll do this one fast. Thaco or ascending AC?
Thaco.
Why?
Loved it. Why? I don't know. It's just because I got
Get
used to
fast
it.
because Dale's getting bored. We got to go fast because Dale's bored.
Dale's getting bored. Okay, well,
Yeah.
because it worked. You knew what you needed. You added and subtracted, and that was it. Done. Thaco. Done.
All right, Cody.
They're both the same fucking thing.
Yes.
Get off the fucking
Thank
fence
you.
and Pick one.
Yes,
Get
they
off
are.
the fence and pick one. Thaco or Ascending, sir. You have to pick. The
Um,
gun's to your head. Just like you got to pick your favorite D&D. Which one are you using? Thaco
Thaco,
or Ascending?
only because back in the day when we used Thaco, we used to have to. We made up a song to explain Thaco to people, which I don't remember the whole song, but it basically went like this: 2 hit armor class 0, roll your D20, subtract your Thaco. So that was the first part of the song. So that's what we used to sing to everybody to teach them Thaco. And
that was
I
the
never had a
worst
problem
boy
with it
band
at all.
ever.
Roll your damn damage. Yes.
We never had a song, Cody, but we had a saying. It was "Shut up and roll the fucking die."
Right. Yeah. That works too.
Yeah, but I want a song, man. That's awesome. I want to see the little dance routine. You know?
I didn't have any singer friends growing up. So,
A theater kid like you.
I wasn't a theater kid until my late 20s. So
Fair. All right. Okay, so Sean, Thaco or Ascending? You have to pick. No choice.
well, I will pick, but first I'm going to say I'll generally use what comes with the system. I'm not going to rewrite a system, right? But I do prefer Thaco, mainly because most of the systems I run are Thaco. But Thaco, the problem is people don't use it right. People still do all their bonuses and they say, oh, well, I have to add and then subtract. It's like, no, you're supposed to pre-calculate all of your fixed bonuses in the first place. So you have your Thaco number, and that way you're minimally adding to the die. So you're just using core numbers. And that makes the math infinitely easier, because when you add more numbers, even though it's easy math, it's addition, it's still more math. You're still actually giving yourself more work to do, even if it is easy. But yes, as Cody says, mathematically, they're pretty much the same thing.
Okay. All right. I was an Ascending AC guy. I thought it was a great idea. I was really into it. And then I saw a video, 2 videos on YouTube that I've often linked in my community tab, where this guy basically breaks down how Thaco works and why Thaco is superior. And he sold me. He converted me on it. He really did. He said, AC0 was like, it just worked. You didn't get that escalation of numbers that you get from the Ascending, where you always got to be rolling higher, always got to be rolling higher, always got to be rolling higher, and you get that escalation. So I kind of agreed on that. So if I have to use AC, I'm using Thaco. I think it's really good. And I even found out a way to use active defense with Thaco, which made me even happier, because I'm like, well, now I've got that thing that I love so much. So life was pretty good on that one. Fair. And also, I think anyone who says basic addition and subtraction is too much math in your game really needs to have their report cards looked more carefully at, and possibly their high school diploma removed, or their GED, because it's just like, come on, man. That's like, we're not asking for square roots. We're not asking for calculus. We're not asking for algebra. It's plus minus. This is basic shit. Kids learn this, You have 5 apples. You eat 1 apple. How many apples do you have left? I mean, it's pretty straightforward shit. So for me, I'm okay on that. I think Thaco has gotten a much maligned reputation from the more modern gamers, and we saw that when we saw WotC put Thaco the Clown in their setting, because they wanted to mock the old school thing. And that's fine. You can do that, guys, up there in Seattle with your fancy pants 5e games. But I think for the rest of us, pick what you like and run with it, and don't shit on others for taking what they enjoy. If they enjoy Ascending AC, God bless them. Ascending AC.
That's just it. I go to a game and they're using Ascending. I'm not saying, well, you're doing it wrong, you should be using Thaco. I accept whatever they're using. If I'm not gonna rewrite my 5th ed game to use Thaco. I'm gonna use Ascending because that's what's there. But at the same time, don't come to my table when we're playing Old School Essentials and bitch about this, that I'm not using Ascending. And I have had 2 people do that. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Use the math skills you claim to have and just play the game. Just roll.
You have a PhD in mathematics.
Yeah.
I'll also say, the other thing about the Ascending AC I kind of like is it kind of has a cool flavor, right? It's kind of way cooler to say I have -10 armor class than it is to say I have 20 armor class.
Oh, yeah.
I do think
kind of the same thing with like.
Sorry, finish your thought, and I'll say what I'm saying.
No, I was going to say I just kind of like the flavor of it, but also like it's kind of the same thing as like saving throws. Make a fucking death save is a lot cooler than make a fortitude.
Make a dex save,
right?
What I was about to say was the idea of the armor class, of course, came from the old naval combat games, where armor class 1 was the lowest and was the best, and they probably should have kept the math to keep that idea rather than go to 0 and go to the negatives and all that. So that when you say I have armor class 1, people know that is first class armor. That is the best, right? If I have armor class 2, that's second class. It's really good, but it's not the best.
Fair enough. Hey, Omen, nice to see you, by the way. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, I agree with everything we just said around on this one. None of this bothers me any much. I think once I discovered active defense, armor class became meaningless to me. It was just like, I don't care if it's stack or if it's ascending at the end of the day, because I'm still going to use active defense, and I'm still going to watch you roll your own dice and curse yourself with your shitty rolls, as opposed to blaming me for my hot dice all the time as the DM.
So I love rolling dice, so I'm not taking the dice away from myself.
Yes. We know what you like to do, sir. We know. Your love of the halfling weed has slowed your mind. Okay. Hit points.
Halfling potato soup.
We're here.
Hit points.
Some people love hit points. Some people hate them. Some people love wound tracks. Some people hate them. They call them the death spiral and all this other fun stuff. Where do y'all stand on that? Who wants to take this one? I won't even pick one of y'all. Let one of you who has a feeling about it start.
I like hit points. They work. But I don't think that they should be astronomical. And in 80 second edition, if you actually use some of the first edition stuff with it from the Cavalier, their hit points could get insane. So it's ridiculous. So I think you should just rein in your hit points just a little bit, and you're just fine. Just make it a little bit more realistic. So I like hit points.
Oh, you use the R word, realistic. Take a drink.
Okay, I said a little bit, just a little bit. Okay,
take a little drink. All right, who's next on the hit point wound track feeling?
They're good. They're a system. They're effective. They're quick. They're an easy concept to grasp. Sure, yes, they are not realistic. But if we go down the realism rabbit hole, we're done, right? And there's a reason that they have endured. Not every game uses them because they're trying to be different, but any game that does, anybody sitting down says, "Oh, hit points, I get it. Okay, this is a measure of my health." So yeah, I don't mind. If you're going to present me with a good alternate system that's easy to grasp and keeps the flow, then I'll take a look. Absolutely, and I'm sure there are plenty out there.
I actually was a big fan of the True 20 system for a long time, and then it just was so slow and complicated and annoyed me, and I stopped using it. Cody, hit points or wound tracks?
I enjoy both. But I mean that's usually my answer, right? For different reasons. Yeah, like everybody was saying, hit points are really easy. It's a great abstraction, like Gary said in the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. It's an abstraction of exhaustion and fatigue, and that's the way I've always imagined it. It's not just.
I'm sorry,
put your hand down there, Bear.
That description from Gary, by the way.
Whatever. I mean, when I DM a game, that's how I describe it. If somebody takes 2 hit points of damage, I don't say you got a little cut on your arm or whatever. I say,
or you can. That's an abstraction. Sure. It's what you need it to be in the moment.
It's an abstraction. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what hit points are supposed to be. Wound tracks are great too. I like the wound tracks from like the D6 system and the World of the Storyteller systems, the World of Darkness. Those work great. I like that system. And you take like a penalty as you go down in wounds. Great. Like all that works great to me. So either one's fine. It just depends on the game. As far as like D&D is concerned, if they took out hit points, I'd be like, this is not D&D anymore because it's a part of D&D, right?
Okay. I, much like Cyberpunk taught me a different way to look at how to hit people and how to avoid being hit, Marvel Superheroes taught me how to do hit points plus conditions. So not a wound track, but a condition. And D&D has conditions in it, and we've seen them since, 3rd edition they really took off, and then 4th and 5th they went somewhere, and I think they're a good idea. And if you have that idea of, okay, you've gotten, you got hit, but the hit was so good, now you got to make a save to avoid getting a condition. that condition being staggered or injured or wounded, and it having repercussions, but you still have your hit point pool available to you. And you get that in Marvel with the slam and stun and kill results, which are really good. So if I run D&D, first thing, and this is the one that everybody fucking hates, by the way, but then some people love it. Whatever your Constitution score at first level is, congratulations, that's your hit point pool plus 1 full hit die of your character class. So a fighter gets 8 points or 10 points or whatever. That's it. That's all the hit points you're getting, other than maybe your con bonus every level. What about all those hit dice we get each level go up? Those are used for healing or for using to do things, because they're your class thing. It's your hit die. You can use it to add to damage. You can use it to add to a thing, but you spend them and they go away, and then you're going to have to wait for them to refresh. And that, for me, makes it more dynamic, more fun. Add in the conditions, add in the degrees of success, and boom, suddenly I got a game that can have classes and levels and hit points and just run tickety-boo.
I remember you did a video on that. I like it. I like the system that you just outlined. I think it's great. But I wouldn't use it in D&D because I'm not saying that's an insult. I wouldn't use it in D&D because what Cody's been saying, it stops being D&D to me.
I disagree with that statement, though, as a core statement. I will talk about that. Oh my God, thank you, Tabletop Crusaders. Guys, we are at $32, which means we are $68 away from giving away 2 gift cards. Come on, guys, you can do it. Sorry, I have to give some gift card. While Sean talks about what he said, I'm going to give some gift cards to the cats.
I was just saying, it's like I like D&D as is because of the way it's laid out. But what you've just described is interesting to me. I like that idea, and in your game, I would expect to see it. I mean, it's like if the thing you laid out wasn't there, I'd be like, okay, what's Bear talking about? Where's the system he laid out and created?
Are you referring in Bastard Sword?
Whatever game you end up creating.
It's there.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. But it is a good system. It's for a different effect. It's not that it necessarily can't work in D&D. It shifts the feeling slightly. That's just my opinion on that. Right.
The one problem I have with hit points is we were touching on it earlier was I don't like hit point bloat. So that's one thing I don't like in 3rd edition and the later editions is you just continue getting hit dice all through all the levels. And when you get to these high levels, you're just at fucking ridiculous numbers. I much prefer the older editions of D&D where you cap out, at hit points, and it's not as silly and ridiculous. And I also like your system, Bear, and, Talislanta, uses a similar system, which kind of turned me on to that, where you just have a base number of hit points and you only progress. You only gain, like in Talislanta, you only gain 2 hit points a level, so you might start with 10, 12, 8 hit points, but you only gain 2 hit points a level. So that's it. Like you're not really increasing that much. I dig that system, but yeah, like Sean was saying, I like D&D the way it is. Just keep D&D the way it is. Just keep it the same.
Yes. There shall be no mingling of the games, you game segregationist. I understand.
I also like watching players roll their hit points and watch them tremble with fear.
It's fun.
But that's the thing. If you take that advantage, but hang on, HP or wounds are just target numbers for game masters to TPK. Thank you, Tabletop Crusaders. First of all, for the donation, and second of all, for the cute comment about TPKs. You don't have to worry about hit points. You can TPK without hit points. Trust me. 5 quick death saves that everybody fails. Well, I guess that's the end of that party. But we had 38 hit points. Yeah, but you blew your death save, so that sword went right through your throat, opened your carotid artery, and now you're dead. C'est la vie. Or say that more. But anyway, the point being is that for me, so we'll get into the next one. We're an hour in, so now we can start going off the track a little bit and talk about whatever at this point in time. We've done our first hour of stayed focused. I'm really impressed we did that. I don't agree with the statement that both Sean and Cody are making. I understand why you're making it, but I don't agree with the idea that it's not D&D. I think the one thing Professor Dungeon Master has said that I truly agree with is that if you're rolling a D20 and your goal is to roll high, you're playing D&D. And I mean, you could always nitpick it and clip it and counterpoint it and point to parliamentary procedure it and all that stuff that you want to do. But ultimately, I think it's a way to say it. So if I've got classes, if I've got levels, if I've got races, and I've got armor class, but I've got less hit points and condition saves and I don't know, active defense. It's still D&D. Just like every edition of D&D that has come out, it's just some different rules that have been added into the base to make it more to the flavor of the person designing it. At least that's my feeling.
I don't mind tweaks. I agree with you there. I just there's a threshold where it stops being the game you want to play. It's a weird kind of nebulous thing. I'll use my nephew to be George, for example. He started playing OSE, which was great, and then he decided certain rules in OSE weren't to his liking, so he started changing them. And it's like, okay, let's see what we do. And then next thing you know, we're playing Lamentations of the Flame Princess, but he still labels it OSE, and it's like, I really don't like this game.
No, sir, I don't like it.
Nope.
No,
I don't like it one bit.
I don't like it.
I'm going to have to say I slightly disagree with all of that, but yet at the same time, I think role-playing in general, it's all the same game, just you're changing genres. The mechanics really doesn't matter. When you sit at the table and you're role-playing, doesn't really matter what rules you're using, so long as everybody's having a good time. If we're playing fantasy, we're playing fantasy. Isn't that Dungeons and Dragons? But if you're playing... Go ahead.
No. Finish your statement, Chris.
Fight.
That's not really a fight.
No. Finish your statement.
Ultimately, if we're playing, like I'm making up a GI Joe type military action game. If you're playing that, the rules are a little different, but it's basically the same game that you're playing. And that's my point. Does the game mechanics really matter so long as the people at the table are having a good time and your game master is running a good game?
Counterpoint. Yes, the mechanics matter.
They do, yeah. I agree with Bear on that.
No. I see the point you're making, Chris, and I'm not saying it's not a valid point. It's a very valid point. But at the end of the day, I'm here to play a game. If it's just going to be mutual storytelling, I don't need dice and I don't need rules for that. I can just sit around with you guys, go, and then the dragon came, and we were putting out the fire, and then the gypsies came and they killed us. No, they were going to kill us. There's plenty of games out there that do that and have very minimal mechanics. And sadly for me, they arse me off to a point where I just don't want anything to do with them. Even if there are good ideas I can steal, overall, I'm not a fan of that presentation of what I like to call talking stick games, right? But you're right. If we're having fun, that's all that matters at the end of the day. But for me, part of the fun is playing the game.
Well,
so I want the rules to matter. Yeah, and I want the rules to matter. So that's why.
And some rules are a legitimate joy to play within. Other rules can be frustrating, right? Like if you can't wrap your head around it, or you have to stop to do too much math at any given time, things like that. I mean, that's why the THACO detractors, they'll complain it's too much math for them to do. Oh, there's $10 more for you.
Yeah, game mechanics can and do cause a certain feel. Agreed on that one, 100%. And we're now 52 away from game card giveaway, so we're getting closer, guys. Good stuff. All right, okay. We can all agree that game mechanics, like Squirrel said and like Sean was saying, will cause certain flavors or certain things, and sometimes they can be as delicious as they are. Sometimes they can be bitter. Sometimes they can be I hate that rule. You know what I mean? Like that happens. Mm-hmm. I'm actually become a big fan of the 2d6 skill system for D&D characters. And I mean, I say skills, I mean thief skills, ranger skills, and I've seen it and I've adapted it myself into other classes that have abilities that do things like that, and making little skill plans out of them that work on their level and all that fun stuff. And it really, and I think I can't remember whose blog it was. I saw it on the first time. It might have been Dyson Logos had an article about it, but it was a really interesting idea. So I used that in my last OSE game. I brought in this idea of these skill tables for the classes that had abilities like that. And it worked wonderful. Roll 2d6 and off you go. But that worked for me better than roll a d20 plus your mod because it was different. And I liked the subsystem at that point in time. And I still do. And if I ever do run OSE again, a lot of these house rules are going to be showing up in my BX game. Do I think they're the only way to do it? No. Oh my God. Look at that. Well, I'm so glad you're having fun with Tankar. Tank's a good guy. Love him to pieces. And thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it, Dan Dungeon Damsel. But yeah, so let's get to the next one then. This is the big one for me. House rules. Some people hate them. I've legitimately seen like on RPG.net back in the day and stuff like that, like just full. I mean, if they were in a room together, it'd be a Donnybrook, it'd be just a full-on drag down a brawl happening. What do you guys think about house rules? I mean, clearly, is it's better rules as written, or do we take the page from Gary, who didn't even use the rules as written himself, and run the rules we want to run at our table?
I have never met a game I haven't wanted to house rule with a caveat. I still try rules as written first to see what the intent was and see if I can get my head around the game as presented before I start playing with it.
Okay. Cody?
Yeah. So back in the day, I would always play rules as written when I started as a kid. I just thought that was the way you did it. Second edition AD&D was what presented to me the idea that you can house rule. I forget what I think it's in the forward to AD&D second edition, and David Zeb Cook is talking about all the players. It's just some little brief thing. He just talks about, if you have a binder of house rules, that's cool too. It's still AD&D. And I was like, what? A binder of house rules? Huh? You can make up your own rules? So that as a kid, I was just like, what? Mind blown. And but we always tried to stick to the rules as written. I'm a big proponent of house rules, though. Today, like if I'm running D&D, I always have some list of house rules. I did want to mention, like, my point about, I keep saying, it's not D&D. What I meant by that is like the actual published rules. So if they like drastically changed the published rules to me, and they were changing all these things, I don't think it's D&D. But if you change the game to suit what you want for your table, it's still D&D at your table, right? I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying that, like, as a whole, it's not the flavor of D&D. But that doesn't mean you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons at your table the way you've always played it or the way you want to play it. And so, I play Dungeons and Dragons differently than you play it. Sean plays it differently than we all play it. I'm just saying, Sean plays rules as written. I always have some house rules of, different sorts. I want to try different things out every time. Yeah. Chris, he's the house rules master. He wrote his own fucking game. Bear, so did you, right? You wrote your own game, right? Yeah.
I'm losing my ground here on my own channel. Cody's got the better voice. Chris is the game writer, and I'm like, what do I do? Oh yeah, I'm just the lump that brings you all together.
Everybody's got to have some purpose.
Yeah, well, being a linchpin's a fun thing to be. No, but I agree with you on that. And just to address this really quickly, I'm introducing a new house role in any game that I run. If Omanal plays, his characters permanently have disadvantage, because that makes sense to me. Okay, so Chris, house rules. Yay, nay.
I'm gonna have to quote Victor Gibson here. Once you take the game home, it's yours to change as you see fit. I totally agree with that.
Amen, brother.
At the end of the day, when we run a game, whether we choose to use the rules as written or to use our own house rules, those are our house rules. So we're all using house rules, whether we know it or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like we all agree on this one, which is if it works, it works, and it's your table, do what the hell you want. So that leads me to the only next question I need to ask at this point in time, which is, and hopefully Cody will hear the question for when he gets back. Zeb Cook, genius or mad lad?
Oh, I'm a Zeb Cook fan, so genius. And yes, Bear, I'm going to blow your mind here a little bit. I am the 1 minute combat gamer.
Because you like miniatures.
Yeah, I do like miniatures, but also the actual time frame is arbitrary. It just, I like the 10-minute segment style of running. It just works.
Yeah, I can't stand it, but that's me personally.
I use the 1 minute round in AD&D because it makes sense in AD&D the way it's laid out. But no, for others, like I use the 10-second round in OSE, which is the default. My 5th ed game, I've actually changed from the 6-second combat round to a 10-second combat round. I thought the 6-second round was a little too quick for all the shit they let you do in 5th edition.
So, someone asked, What? Well, right there. What is? Oh, sorry, I got the wrong one. I don't know why I went to Tabletop Crusaders. What's a Zeb Cook Precious? Well, this game would not exist without Zeb Cook. It's as simple as that. So to me, he's a genius. Zeb was the guy who came in at TSR and went, "This is all really neat stuff, but I got crazy ideas. Let's try them out." And Zeb Cook is probably responsible for a lot of innovation that we saw in D&D over the years.
He's the key mover and shaker from Second Ed, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, for sure.
He
And a hell of a
up.
writer.
He screwed it up.
Well, I disagree, but that's, we can disagree on that one. I think he's a hell of a writer. I think he created some stuff that is just amazing. They have that Zeb Cook game they do where they took his Conan system and turned it into a clone, Zerfers or whatever it's called. He had ideas for games that broke the mold. And for me, those molds needed to be broken so that we could get more and more and more and more and more development in the hobby and not be stayed and static. And that's why I will always appreciate him. I think he's an absolute fucking mad lad because of the stuff he came up with. Like, some of it's just like, not everything he did, I'm like, oh yeah, 100%. But, overall, pretty good stuff. Now, Sean, go ahead and explain why Second Ed is broken while I go grab a drink.
It was broken. I just don't think he quite understood First Ed, because a lot of the things that were taken into Second Ed were carried over incorrectly. Like the 1 minute combat round, for instance. They left the 1 minute combat round, but then gutted all the nuance that made the 1 minute round necessary. The segmented system, for instance. And the 1 minute round allowed for you to play with a lot of the abilities. Like, for example, fighters got multiple attacks as they leveled up. I'm not just talking like their regular like 2 attacks per round. I'm talking about like the 20 attacks per round they got against mooks, because they get one attack per level of experience. Now, if you're dealing with a 6 second round and somebody's got 20 attacks, that's absurd. You're dealing with the 1 minute round, counting for the description, the idea of the 1 minute round, meaning sort of encompassing everything you imagine in a fight, the feints, the parries, the thrusts, the back and forth, the punch to the face, all the little details, with the one attack representing a clean hit. Suddenly a fighter with multiple attacks, like one per level, that only works in a 1 minute round. If you follow me.
I do. I think the time frame is just arbitrary, though.
It's arbitrary when there's no other meat to it. But if
Right.
if you need that time frame to justify all the things that could possibly happen, what's his insert name here? Is this Sean or the puppet? Yes, we are one and the same. Anyway, but yeah, the 1 minute round allowed you to play with that. It was good for narrative and certain abilities like drinking a potion. Even I was just doing a video on drinking a potion in First E versus 50, whereas in 50 you've got 6 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna go through my pack, unstopper it, drink it, and get the effect in 6 seconds. And players whine that that's still not enough. They want it as a bonus action. It's like, come on, really? You drink something in 6 seconds. You tell me how fast that goes. Whereas in first edition, you've got the 1 to 4 6 second segments to get it out of your pack. You've got the 1 segment to drink it. Then you've got an onset time. All of that within the 1 minute span. So,
all right, time me. I'm going to drink my potion.
You have to chug the whole thing.
Not doing it, brother. Yeah, no, that would be a mistake.
Do you have a potion of dispel fatigue with you, aka a coffee?
No.
Anyway, so I'm rambling a little, but the point stands that the 1 minute round in AD&D was justified. And when they did Second Ed, they took away that. I think the MOOC rule was there, but in some sort of little optional coda of blue text somewhere at the back. They just said the round is 1 minute and you get your one attack, but they don't justify the need for it. They could have just said,
it's there. You just got to read the second paragraph, Sean.
They do not justify it well. They could have just said the combat's a 10-second round. like they did in OSE, and that would have been the end of it. That would have worked. So things like that, and that's where I say he messed up. When they wrote second ed, the thing they improved obviously was the presentation. It's a well packaged book, but they gutted a lot of what made D&D, and a lot of what made AD&D was taken out. And that's my issue with Zeb Cook.
Okay.
Notwithstanding his other work, but in as it pertains to the upgrade from AD&D to second ed, because there's a lot of second ed that I loved, absolutely.
Okay, but
Second ed was my go-to for 30 years, so it's not like I tried it once and threw it out.
welcome to the Sean Show. We're just all puppets living in his world right now. But no, okay, look, first of all, I'm going to say my hottest take of the thing. I don't like AD&D. Done. Said it. It's there. I've said it. I think first edition was overly complicated. It wasn't fun to play when you started using all the rules, and it just became an exercise in frustration. I prefer BX because it has a much simpler approach, and you can add or remove what you need without worrying about things. If I had to play AD&D, I'm going to play second. I'm going to play second because it was my go-to game for a long time, and we could ignore a lot of the stuff that we didn't like in it. Like, we didn't like weapon speed factor. We didn't like the different armors versus different attack types. We didn't like that stuff. So we got rid of it, and we just played the game the way we wanted to. Ultimately, in retrospect, because I didn't know BX at the time, we essentially BXified 2E. And that's made us happy. That's not to say you're wrong, Sean. You're not. Everybody has their taste. Everybody has what they like. Cody, I know, is a huge 2E fan. Chris, I don't know where you stand on the 1E, 2E argument.
I prefer second, but I started with the BX actually and worked my way into second edition. So I actually learned first edition after.
Okay. I wanted to start with Beck Me, but no, we were going to play advanced D&D because we were 15. It was 1985, and advanced was the big boys game. So sadly, I started with AD&D, and in 88, when 2E came out.
89, yeah.
89, yeah. My DM switched it, and we just started playing 2E and never looked back and didn't worry about it. And then, like I've always said, and I always tell this story, around 91, 92, I just stopped playing D&D until the new millennium, and I was fine with that. Didn't bother me at all not to be playing D&D. I honestly, and I'm not, this is not directed at anybody here. Let me make that caveat right out of the gate. Maybe a little bit at Sean. No, I'm kidding. It's not. I don't care. D&D is D&D, and I don't care. You want to play D&D, play D&D. You want to play 3rd edition, play 3rd edition. You want to play 4th edition. I played 4th edition. It was fun. Play 4th edition. Don't care. I think we put way too much of our identities of self into what edition or version of D&D we play, and then people start waving them like flags of the camp that they're a part of, and it just causes schism in our hobby. It causes schism in our social grouping. And for those of you who've been around this channel since the beginning, you know that's the opposite of what I want to do with this channel. Is I always want to bring us together and just be able to have an appreciation for everything we all like to play. Yeah, I'm not playing Fate, but if someone says they love playing Fate, Godspeed. They're role playing, have fun, have a good time. You're still gaming, and that's all that matters to me at the end of the day. Except first edition AD&D, light it on fire and bury it in a hole. Except for the Unearthed Arcana, which made it playable.
Disagree.
I like parts of Unearthed Arcana, but I didn't like all of it.
Yeah, I use selective elements of Unearthed Arcana.
Everyone did. I mean, I love the Cavalier class, but it was broken as fuck.
Oh, yeah. Never used the Thief Acrobat.
That's something I can't stand when it comes to classes, is when you start getting these really hyper specific classes. And it's why I don't like the barbarian class, because for me, barbarian is a culture, not a class, right? Like, at the end of the day, a savage fighter from the north is
a barbarian.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't have to have a class to do it. But that's where I like things like talent trees added on to D&D, or feats, or something that allows you to go, okay, I'm a fighter, but I'm going to take berserker. You know, I'm a berserk as well. And I'm from a low-class savage culture, so now I'm a crazy north berserk barbarian. Awesome. You're still a
Second Ed
fighter.
did that with the kits.
Yeah, the kids. Listen, I love the Complete Fighters book, and I sadly sold my copy recently, which kind of broke my heart a little bit. Thank you, Sergeant Dan. Thank you so much, Sergeant Dan. Mechanics make the field the game. House rules color the field. I like that. That's a good statement. I like that one. So that's another 5. So we are now
57.
$47 away from gift cards, because let's see, our total tonight is 2 plus 20 plus 20 more plus 5, so 25. 27 from 100 leaves us with, 47 from 100 leaves us with
53.
We're $53 away from giving out 2 cards, so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, so this is the next topic for me on this one, is things like talent trees or special abilities or feats or kits or whatever you want to have. Are you pro? Are you con? In D&D.
Well, I mean, I use the feat system in my 5e game because the system is designed around that, but I don't do anything like that. I don't add it into my OSC or my AD&D games. So I use the system as designed in that regard. But I'm neither pro or I'm neither for nor against them. Because, I mean, it all depends on how the system is designed. You don't want to ham fist a rule that breaks the game into something that doesn't. What's this? Bear doing that? Or yes.
Yes, that's funny. Omanal made it funny.
Yeah, my bank account does the descending value system every month.
Yes, my bank account is clearly THACO. Yes, it is. Okay, so you don't like adding them in because you feel
I don't like hand fisting when it doesn't belong there, but I don't mind them as a system.
Okay,
I played Diablo. I like the skill trees to a certain extent.
Sure. Okay. Squirrel Hermit, type us why. I want to know what you think about Harn Barbarians and explain it, please, below in the chat. I would love to know what you're thinking there. Chris, you're playing BX.
I think you could easily add the kits to BX too. I mean, kits were great. I converted them to professions in my game, so I'm definitely for kits. My favorite was the Dwarves Handbook, but there I am.
You kind of a dwarf fan.
The only problem I have with the second D kits is that they were so all over the map in terms of what they offered.
Yeah.
If they were just role-playing flavor, they all would have been great. But some of them, like, hey, you get +3 to striking damage, and other ones are like, yeah, you get noble people kind of like you.
You can assess the value and quality of a shield. Look at you.
Look at you. Yeah. It's like, guess which one people
the
talk.
Rangers Handbook went off the rails where you could turn into a tree. I mean,
yeah.
I only felt ever the Fighters Handbook was needed because fighters needed the boost. No one else did, because everybody else had something they did special other than beat things. But in the Fighters Handbook, the only thing I liked was weapon group proficiencies. There's like the weapon group rules.
I remember
and fighting styles. And I love the fighting styles. I absolutely adore the fighting styles. Being able to specialize in a fighting style and all that. I thought that shit was that was tits on toast as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I used the combat and tactics book for my campaign, and it had all of that ported in. It's probably one of the best supplements they did for second ed.
Well, that's the 2.5 edition is what people like to call that, right? Where they released those 3 books that really changed the 2.5. That they were precursors to 3rd edition, essentially. A lot of people say. I don't know. I've never read them.
Some of the PHBRs were really great, though. I mean, the Bard's Handbook added so much for musical instruments and stuff to the game. It just wasn't there. So it was nice to have that little extra if you wanted it.
But I disagree. This is the problem. This is where I break with D&D. They always make bards into musical, singing, dancing monkeys.
Yeah.
And it's great, but like you watch Knight's Tale,
My favorite is
bard. Chaucer's an absolute bard, and he doesn't sing, he doesn't play any instruments, he just talks.
He's a poet, yes, an orator.
And why don't we have that option? You know what I mean? Why is it always got to be? And then when you get the options with bards, it's always, well, we made skalds. Okay, I get it. You love fucking crazy Vikings singing murderers. We get it. Like
the whole music thing. Well, a lot of the D&D classes, of course, came from some literary archetype. The Ranger was Aragorn, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly every bard is now Orpheus because they can counter the Song of the Siren. And it's like, oh, come on. I agree. As you say, there should be some variations on the theme.
Well, yeah. So like one of the things I'm doing right now with Bastard Sword is that I took all of the class abilities that I had assembled for the class version of Bastard Sword, which was like 3 editions ago, and I'm now trying to see if I can make them into special abilities, which are like powers that you can get for certain talents that you take, or make them into talents. And I was looking at the prayers that I had for holy people, where they have prayers, and one of them is by praying they can make an attempt to counter any vocal effect, like the siren song. You know what I mean? So like I just love this idea of this holy person, like you guys are being attacked by sirens and they're singing your harpies, they're singing their harpy screeches at you, and you've got, you know, your fighters are up there with the shields trying to fight them back, and the wizard's trying to do what he has, and then there's this guy in the middle just going, oh Jesus Lord, and creating this constant noise that he's using to try and nullify their effect by praying to his god. And that's the kind of stuff I want in a game. You know what I mean? I don't need in D&D more hit points. I don't need more attacks. I need more flavorful abilities. I need abilities that are related to the class. And I think sometimes, no matter what edition of D&D you're talking about, they hit the mark bullseye, and other times they miss the target by a country mile. And sadly, I've kind of noticed that some of the country mile misses have become tropes that completely go on and on and on through the editions. And I mean, like one of the ones I'm so happy they got rid of was clerics not having a spell at first level. Now, we all know I hate clerics. That's me. But like, you want to talk about a useless character at first level? A BX cleric. Well, I'm a shitty fighter and we're done. Like, if I live through first level as a shitty fighter, I might get to be useful. You know what I mean? And I always thought that's such a strange.
I mean, I'll defend that in that they're kind of like wizards in that regard. That because as the clerics get their spells, they become beasts. So there's that little bit of a waiting period, and you're not as useless as a wizard because you can wear armor and you can be a support fighter, and you still do get turning undead, which can save the game.
And don't forget, you level up
fast
quicker than anybody.
The thief
except
is
for
faster.
the thief.
Yeah. I hate gold for XP anyway, so you know what I mean. I've got issues with BX leveling to begin with. I like the differing XP tables. I like XP systems that reward more than just either murder or robbery. You know what I mean? I like the ones that sort of, you know, give you some stuff for role playing and story and achieving goals and things like that, you know, more so than, hey, I got a bunch of money. Now I'm better because I have money. What a comment on capitalism that appears to be, if you think about it a little deeply, you know? Or the might makes right. I murdered a bunch of shit. Now I'm better. You know what I mean? It's like, eesh. No offense, but I'm sure someone out there with the right brain and not me could write an entire PhD paper on how D&D is analogous for Manifest Destiny America and autocracy or plutocracy. No, autocracy. Oligarchy is called oligarchy. There we go. You know, so I think it's crazy. You know, I mean, I think it's crazy. Yes, I get that it's about incentivizing exploration, but I fucking hate dungeons, Michael. So it doesn't incentivize my games. Sorry, you know, it just doesn't. I think dungeons are pointless and it's a hangover. They're no fun for me. I know people love them. I'm not going to shit on them. I just don't like them. How about you guys? What are your feelings on dungeons?
They're part of the game.
Love them.
I'm going to have to drink every time Sean says something like, it's a system. It's part of the game.
Oh, perfect. They're totally drunk.
I dig dungeons quite a bit, but I like shorter dungeons. I don't like mega dungeons anymore. And the reason I like dungeons is because we never did dungeons when I started out playing. No. We didn't do them for years and years and years until I became, well, I started off as a DM. And then, you know, in middle school and high school, I had like a regular DM, so I didn't get to DM as much. And then after high school, I became the regular DM again. So when I became the regular DM, I wanted to do dungeons more because I never got to do them that much when I was playing all that time through middle school and high school. And so it was something new and different for me. I enjoy dungeons, but again, I like shorter dungeons. I don't want anything over, you know, a couple levels, 2 or 3 levels. That's it. Even 1 level dungeon. Great. Like, but you know, mega dungeon, I don't really want to do that. Gets exhausting.
Yeah, I ran Forge of Fury, and somewhere after the Duragar, my players wanted to commit suicide. And as the DM, I was right there with them. You know what I mean? It was just like it goes on and on and on. It's just tedious. But that's me. I like the 5-room dungeon concept. I think that's a really great idea. Hey, string 2 of them together, make a 10-room dungeon. Hell, do a 15-room dungeon. But at least it's moving and it's doing something. This plotting, tap, 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 tick, 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 search for secret doors. It's exhausting. It's not fun. It's not for me. For me. For someone else, could be the cat's ass, and they could love it to pieces. You know what I mean? And I'm not faulting them for that, but it's not for me.
Even when you're in a dungeon, it doesn't have to be all about the dungeon. I like it when players just start role playing based on the
Oh,
situation.
yeah. That's fine. But I mean, listen. Let's be honest. Day 2 in the dungeon. Where are you guys shitting? You know, day 3 in the dungeon. Hey, let's all start making some con saves here because we all smell like polecats in an outhouse. You know what I mean? Like, there's it's nonsense. I don't like it. Sorry. Go ahead.
I really play up those aspects if I'm running a dungeon and they spend more than, well, not like the, where are you going to shit tonight, but like, but I play up the aspect of sleeping in a dungeon is not a good idea, and it's not good. I teach them that lesson real fucking quick. You don't want to stay in the dungeon, like that's a dark, dangerous place. You want to get out of the dungeon and go back to town. If you want to,
a lot of published dungeons where there's a point of no return in the dungeon, where you cross some threshold that you can't get back. You need to go out the other end of the dungeon now, because that bridge is gone, or you barely managed to get past the beholder or whatever,
I don't run modules. I design my own dungeons if I'm going to do a dungeon. And again, that's why I like short dungeons, is because, there is always a point of return if you want it. That's an option. Do you want to go on or do you want to go back? I like presenting those options.
Did I ever run you through Goblin Gully? Did you ever play Goblin Gully with me? Goblin Gully is this Dyson Logos map that I populated and took his idea.
No. The one with the tree, the Goblin tree. Yeah, I've ran that in one of my campaigns. It's a great dungeon.
I added something to it. When they get to the bridge that goes to the other side of the dungeon, I put Goblin Archers up there.
Bridge, I did the same thing.
I literally have players now who just go, that fucking bridge, because we killed 14 BS characters trying to cross that bridge. 14.
I did the same thing.
It's insane. So much fun.
That's a cool dungeon, actually.
So Dale asked a good question. And by the way, Pan, I see what you're saying about the I've moved to OD&D 100 XP per HD, 1 XP per gold, so money doesn't incentivize. I can see that. That's fine. Dale says, when did the cat's ass become a good thing? Don't you have a cat? Don't you have a cat? Who here has a cat? I have a cat. Anybody else have a cat?
Waking up to the cat's ass facing you is not a good thing.
The point is not that you think the cat's ass is something special. It's clearly the cat thinks it's awesome and wants you to see it. My old aunt, who didn't swear because she was a proper lovely lady, never used the term cat's ass. She'd say the cat's bloomers. It was just like, okay, that's lovely. It's still their asshole, like, good morning. Hi, like, what are you gonna do? But yeah, it's the dog's balls. It's dog's breakfast. Anyway, where were we? We got off on cats and dogs, dungeons, all that kind of good stuff. I think we're just all over the map at this point in time. All right, let's do this one. This one's fun. Tabletop Crusaders, man, you are killing me. And yeah, I'm gonna have to do that one. You're right. And I've been a bad boy on this one, that I haven't been taking my drinks when I get the super chats.
There, when you guest in my game at some point in the future, I will pre-gen a cleric for you.
I'll play the fuck out of it, and you'll hate me because I'll be really religious.
Oh, that's awesome!
I'll be super zealot.
I encourage that. It just as a sort of aside before we're back on topic. My 5e game has a player playing a cleric of Elmater, and he's playing him like a psychotic bastard. So everybody's like looking at him sideways, going, "Are you sure you're a representative of Ilmater?"
Oh yeah.
It's very fun to watch.
I played a cleric one time who absolutely refused to heal the fighter because of his alignment.
I love it.
my cleric was neutral good, and the fighter was chaotic neutral. And it's just like, no, my god will not heal you. You are not worthy of my god's gifts. You must convert if you wish them. And they were like, why are you fucking ruining the game? And I'm like, am I really ruining the game, or am I making you rethink being a fucking murder hobo asshole? Hi, speaking of the cat's ass, I just got a presentation of it. Thank you so much. They both want food, and they don't realize they're not getting it, so they're just stalking me now. They're fucking circling me like sharks. These two cats, it's awesome.
What are the odds those players who complain that you're playing the character, your cleric, in such a way will also complain, or also the type who will go, well, role playing is very important to me and it has to be done right?
Yeah. Man.
I think
Listen,
players should
I
be
don't play with those guys anymore.
The way they like.
Like, I don't play with them anymore. That's just the simplest way to look at it, right? I don't play with them anymore. By the way, with Tabletop Crusaders, we are now $33 away from the gift, I believe. Let's do my THACO math again. So we're at 98, we're at 78, we're at 68, we're at 58, we're at 53, we're at 33. So $33 away on Super Chats from giving out 2 gift cards tonight. So if we can do that, that'll be awesome. That would make me really happy to do. And how are we going to do them? We'll put everybody who chatted in the chat tonight. We'll go through the chat, throw all their names onto a wheel, spin the wheel, and the 2 winners get the cards. So, okay, I wanted to say something. Yeah. What is your biggest pet peeve in addition of D&D? What is that one? Thank you, Beans. What is that one thing that you go, oh, that just right up my ass sideways? I can't stand that one.
In any edition or all of the editions?
Well, if it's one that goes across all editions, great. If you want to break it down by edition, go right ahead. Or just that one that really bothers you. Beans, I swear to fuck, you're going to die right now.
The for 5th ed, it's a toss-up of the hit point bloat or the bloat of races, optional races. That they just keep spamming them out there. Wizards and players keep wanting to play them, and it's like, no, you're not allowed. Not in my games. I want to be a tabaxi. I want to stick my ass in somebody's face.
I want to be a half tabaxi, half genasi. Said when I stick my ass in your face, I light them on fire.
Yeah. So yeah, for 5th ed, that bothers me the most is the bloat of playable racial options.
I agree with that. I agree with that a lot. All right, Chris.
Level caps on races that can live hundreds of years. Why is it that they can't be powerful wizards when a human can do it in 60, but an elf can't do it in 1200?
I'll tell you why. Because humans have the capacity for unlimited potential, whereas the other races are limited by their meager brains. That's why they're called demi-humans.
Bullshit.
The opinions of Sean of Mage's Musings do not necessarily represent those.
I'm just messing with you, Sean.
No, it's okay. I'm messing with you. This is
all
a fun
good,
stream.
Cody?
So I do want to comment on level limits. I actually don't care for them that much, but I do think they work if you think of basically the fact that most classes really cap out at like 9th level, right? In old school D&D. So when you think about level limits, it's really not that much of a cap when you think about it.
Yes, especially in 2nd ed where the caps are like 15 on average.
Right. I don't like the caps in 2nd edition at all.
They're too high.
Yeah, they're way too high. But what things I don't like in D&D, I don't like feats, and I don't like powers, and I don't like that kind of stuff in D&D. Yeah, I just think it just basically it doesn't really add anything to the game for me. I know it adds a lot to the players because it's basically just power game central, and that's all I ever see from powers and feats and all that kind of jazz. I don't really like it. Skills are fine. Skills are fine. I can do without skills, but powers and feats I'm not a big fan of.
So Beans is a bard, not a thief. That's the first thing you need to understand. So he's going to sing us the song of his people. I love feats. And I love powers. I think those things are awesome. I think you can have a game with just 4 classes and then use those to build other classes out of it and then make characters more diverse. I think the amount of them is ridiculous, and I think the logic of them is ridiculous, but I think the concept of them is a good idea. Like a lot of things with D&D since 2nd edition, I think the concept is good, the execution is poor. And that's my thing. But for the biggest bugaboo I have about D&D, everybody has the same magic system with a different name. That pisses me off. Clerics, druids, wizards, bards, warlocks, witches, they all have just spells. Just spells. And all the spells work the same way, and they all do the same type of stuff. And it's just like, I one of the things I liked about Palladium was that there were different magic systems. It's one of the things I liked about basic role playing is that there was entire books about different magic systems for those games. I find the D&D settling on one uniform magic system annoys the living shit out of me. Plus, I also hate that spells have levels that do not correspond to character levels. That is the most frustrating thing with new players, and it's an asinine system. And that's one of those sacred cows that's held over for far too long and was killed properly in 4th edition, and then the whining bitches made them bring it back in 5th edition, which really pissed me off. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
I think the real problem there is that they name them spell levels instead of rank. Even rank,
tier, circle.
Yeah. Rank 1 magic is available to level 1 and 2 mages. Rank 2 magic is 3. It's the same system. It's the wordage, the verbiage that could have stopped that. But I don't mind. Like, I like the way First Ed does magic, and it kind of addresses what you're saying, but in a way that has a unified mechanic. Like cleric spells tend to take longer to cast, right? So the idea is that they are slow. The mechanics of doing it with the dice and everything is all the same, but whereas wizard spells are faster and more potent in combat, right? So there's the feel is there, even though it is, as you say, the same system, but that's for ease of play as much as anything else. But they do have a different flavor, and even druid spells in 1st edition with the casting time are right in the middle. If you notice, they're faster than cleric spells but slower than mage spells on average.
Yeah, that's rearranging deck tiers for me. It's still the same basic mechanic, regardless of those little caveats that go into it. I want separate mechanics. One of the things I love that 3rd edition brought in that Pathfinder ran with was channeling magic for clerics, like channeling divine energy. I thought that was fantastic because that made more sense to me than humana healing spell. And then 5th edition, cleric spells are sometimes showing up on mage lists. Sometimes mage spells are also on cleric lists. It's like, hey, wait, stop, no. So I'm not to harp on about Bastard Sword. I'm trying to create different magic systems for the 4 different types of caster that you can play in the game. And so far, so good.
How dare you promote your own product in your own show? It's just
how dare you?
It's just no cricket.
Dare you? Thank you, Greta. I'm gonna go spray some aerosol cans outside now in your honor. This is an interesting thing because I will never understand the term Vancian magic because it's never been properly explained to me, other than that's what Gary stole for the magic system. So who can explain what Vancian magic really is so I can understand this concept?
Because the magic system was based on novels by a writer named Jack Vance.
I get where it comes from, smartass. I want to know what it means. You son of a bitch.
Oh, it's
the same city because I'd have to take you out to dinner just so I could talk shit to you for an hour.
You know exactly what it is. The Vancian system is where you memorize and the spell is erased from your mind, kind of thing. That's when we say Vancian. That's what that's referring to.
There you go, guys. This is going on the cover of the book.
One of the
reviews. That's whatever your critic quotes. Bastard's the best RPG. Yada yada yada. Some guy on the internet.
Some random asshole from Texas.
In Jack Vance's stories, The Dying Earth, he literally explained magic to work that way. That's exactly how he explained it verbatim in the books. Is magic users would have to memorize spells and they would forget them after they cast them.
Yeah. So that's all they mean by fancy and magic.
That's
is
it.
fire and
That's
forget.
that's it. That's all.
That's it.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. People have made this sound like it's some arcane secret, for fuck's sake.
Well,
Ay, ay, ay. You know, the best version, I think I've said this before, the best version of that I ever saw was in the Sleeping Dragon book by Joel Rosenberg. When they first arrive after being sent there by their professor, who's a wizard, to the alternate world where they become their D&D characters, and they open their eyes, and the wizard fires a lightning bolt that blows up all the supplies that he gave them to make their quest easy. And then, like, the fucking fighter guy is just like, what the fuck? And he's like, you don't understand. They're in my head, and they want to come out, and I didn't understand that from my mouth, and it just came out. And I love that idea that they've memorized all these spells, and they're just sitting there in their fucking head wanting to get out. I think that's genius, because then I could use that. I could use that in the game to make play. Well, let's do your daily sanity check. See how you're feeling there, buddy. Oh, you've memorized all your spells. You've stored your full brain. Okay, let's make some saves now to make sure you don't go wackadoodle on everybody, you know? But that's me. I like fucking with players like that. And scene. Wow, you guys just go dead after I say something. It makes me feel like if it's something wrong. Fuck. I was like,
Well, it was a bit of a
that's-
tangent. We didn't know where you wanted to go from here.
It's a conversation. You can go wherever the fuck you want to go.
Oh, we don't converse. Give us a topic.
Oh, okay. Sean, why is he such a prick, and why do I like him so much? Discuss.
Because I'm such a prick.
I just want to comment. I just want to comment. I really, really love Sean's dedication, devotion, and understanding of first edition AD&D. Much respect, sir. Like
Agreed.
your understanding of the deep lore of first edition AD&D is awesome to me. I love hearing you talk about it and explain it in more than anyone I've ever heard talk about it. You understand it better than anyone, and it's really fascinating to hear you talk about it.
It's funny because up until what year is it? 23. Up until about 10, 11 years ago, I was 100% all in on second ed. All right, that was my go-to.
Yeah.
I had started playing it in '89 when it came out, and aside from some divergences into Rifts and Masquerade and all that, D&D second ed was always my big go-to. And then somebody suggested to me, because I had the first ed books when I was a kid, but they were way over my head because I was a stupid baby. And I figured I'd give Bear some ammunition there. But and I had long since gotten rid of them, which, of course, I came to regret. But a friend of mine was like, you should pick up the first ed DMG. It's got a lot of great material and great advice. And I'm like, okay. So I did. And I'm reading it going, wow, there's a lot of, there really is a lot of good stuff in here. And then I got that bug in my ass to, well, I want to try first ed as it's meant to be, not as second, because at that point I was totally in on the options, the players' options. Combat and tactics is, I believe, I was so tempted to port it to first ed, and it does port, but I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of what made first ed tick before I started changing things around. And so that's basically what I did. I just dove into it. Just as okay, this book is a mess. These rules are a mess because they were published piecemeal. It was published, Monster Manual, which was meant to be compatible with 3 editions that were coming out at the time, and then they released the Player's Handbook a year after that, and the DMG a year after that. So it was like, okay, so they were making the shit up as they went, and they were trying to figure it out. So they didn't put it in a presentable way. And there's a lot of contradiction there. And I was like, okay, but is it a contradiction or more of an upgrade? And then I started piecing it together, and I realized, despite its presentation, when you piece it all together and you use all the little nuances, the game is really rich. And then that's what I came to love about it. That's why I love the segment system, because of what it offers. I love the fact, and my players in my games who play fighters love the fact that I double down on that MOOC rule, where they get 10, there's 5, or we have 3 5th level fighters, and so it's like, wow, against the tribe of kobolds we effectively have 15 attacks per round. It's like, yes, now you're getting it. That's how you can blow through all these people. And it's like, oh, that makes it fun. It kind of does. Little details like that. Then the guiding on creating a socioeconomical structure there that's there for you to kind of look at. And then we talk, Christopher mentioned how he hates the level limits, but the level limits actually serve a great purpose in the game for the non-humans, because when you're using the non-human abilities to their full effect, they're deadly. You want to cap them. Oh, are you focusing on the cat there?
Well,
He's-
it's just that when Beans is on me, you can't tell where my shirt ends and the cat begins. With Chris, we can't tell where his beard ends and the cat begins.
Well, I agree with you about the level caps as far as that's concerned, but it's very human orientated, and I don't think that the elves would be limited that way, or the dwarves.
It's just a matter of, I mean, I obviously I agree with the logic, but from a game perspective, it's a matter of justifying it in context, and so I just made that part of the lore. It's something that the races are aware of, because I mean, obviously in game they don't think, well, I can only get to 9th level, they don't think in those terms, but they do register that. How is it this short-lived race of people of butchers are expanding so fast, and how is it they can master magic that we can barely dream of? The elves ask this question, and it becomes a thing that you can make lore out of, you can make game choices out of. A lot of players will whine, so, well, how come my elf can only get to 5th level? It's like, well, your elf can only get to 5th level, but on average elves have a dex bonus because they get +1 to dex, so every +1 to strike is effectively a level higher. It's like a full levels of ability. So an elf with a 17 dex effectively is +3 levels in ability with missile fire, or with a bow, right? So that's how the numbers play out. So yeah, sure, you can only get to 5th level, but you're at 1st level, you're the equivalent of a 4th level fighter with a bow if you have a good dex. So all of that adds up. Halflings get +3 as a racial bonus with slings.
Yeah.
+3, and then they get a high dex. So it all works out in the wash. So that becomes something, and that becomes a player consideration, and that's the other thing in terms of playing the game. They have to look at the character. Oh, well, I've got these great stats. Well, if I take an elf, I'll get an 18 or a 19 dex. Yeah, but you'll be capped at level 5. But you'll get other abilities. You get the stealth ability. The stealth ability, when you use it properly with the segmented system, makes elves and halflings gods in combat if they can get that surprise, which is more likely than not. So that is a worthwhile trade-off for that level cap. So it all does work out in the wash. Then you add to what I was saying, you add to the lore element. Why are they capped? Why is it? This is a philosophical question that can get asked in game, but it's also something players can work around. It's not a hard cap where they're absolutely stopped there. They can find wishes. They can find those manuals of gainful exercise, or whatever they are, the library.
Skill at arms.
Yeah. So that becomes part of the game itself. So that's why I liked it. I just found that second ed, the more I compared the two, it kind of formed the opinion I've been saying, that there's a bit of a soul to first ed that doesn't quite translate to second ed. Even though second ed is good, absolutely, it just didn't quite have the soul. Bear's giving me that smug smirk.
No, we're giving you that. Okay. I call this section Cody had to talk.
No. I love hearing this shit, because I went down the same rabbit hole. You got to understand, like, because I started with 2nd edition, and then when I was about 12, one of the guys I was playing with, his dad, the whole family played D&D, and they played 1st edition D&D. I didn't know about all the different editions and stuff. Had no idea. I didn't know there was a difference. Sure. And he was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" I was like, we were outside playing on the front porch. We're playing D&D. He's like, "I'll be right back." He came back with the 1st edition AD&D books and the white box. And he's like, "Hey, check this out." So he lets me look at the player's handbook, and I'm like, oh. And it was just like a whole nother world. I mean, this is like a completely different thing. I was just like, what the fuck is this? And I'm just looking through this stuff, and he's like, "Take that home." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Take it home, read it, see what you think." And I was like, all right. So I took it home for a couple weeks and just dove into this stuff and went down this, and even up till now, I've been going down this rabbit hole of unearthing the magic of AD&D 1st edition and the white and original D&D too. I went way down that rabbit hole. So I love that Sean has like fully comprehended. He's just ascended to this level, another level of D&D player. It's awesome to me that he can fully comprehend all these systems and how they work and how they're supposed to work and how it integrates with the game and everything. It's amazing to me. So
Yes, it's like Cthulhu. He read enough to go mad.
To go mad, yes. Keep an
Yeah.
eye out for my 15-part series on D&D, AD&D combat.
No shit.
Well, having started with second edition myself, it was almost like when I was discovering first edition, it was like or backwards engineering is probably the better word. I like to use both stuff from first edition and second edition. So I was basically house ruling myself. That book right there, the expert rule book, that's where I started. I love it.
I do too.
He did it right.
I just had to represent. Sorry.
I'm with you there. I mean, OSE has, which of course is BX, has earned its spot as like my very close runner up right after AD&D. And I usually I'm at the point now where I have to assess players because I've got enough casuals that they're not going to get into AD&D. I just get it, right? But they will love the my OSE game. So I kind of gatekeep my AD&D game now.
I got it. All kidding and joking aside, I have no issue with AD&D. I have no problem. Wouldn't play it as a choice. Wouldn't pick it as the game I'd want to play or even run. But I have no issue with it. It's a fine game. It clearly brought a lot of us to the hobby. Clearly, we all played it. We all did time with it. But I also like a lot of what 2E does, and I love most of what BX does, and I like some of the stuff that 3E does, and I like some of the stuff 4E does, and I like some of the stuff 5E does. I'm one of those people that I see there's good in every edition of D&D, and if I wasn't designing my own game, I would hack it all together into one D&D system that I would use. One D&D. Ooh, sounds culty.
You accidentally promoted the Coast Wizards.
Yes, the sods, the sorcerers of the shore, the sots. But at the end of the day, it's just a game. It's just a game.
You bite your tongue.
No, I won't. It's just a game, sir. The deuce you say.
You shut your trash mouth.
You shut your filthy whore mouth and go back to Whore Island where you came from. Wait. There's a place called Whore Island. But the point is, I don't buy in personally to the pontification and the philosophizing and all that other fun stuff. It's just a game. It's just a game to me. And it will always just be a game to me. And I don't like how people use editions against each other. I don't like edition warring. I don't like the pretension that and this is not to say Sean's pretentious. He's not. But I've seen
I totally am.
No, dude, trust me. You're lightweight compared to some of the pretension I've seen. Who's that asshole that tells everybody that doesn't play 5e they're pieces of human shit? What was that guy's channel? I can't remember. That one YouTuber. I can't remember his name.
I think it's Garibay.
Is that it? I mean, like that's pretentious. You know what I mean? This idea that I know the one true secret of it all. And it just arses me off a lot when people can't just accept that we all love the same thing. Getting together with friends, rolling dice, and pretending we're not who we are. Escaping all this bullshit. You know what I mean? Because let's just be honest. The world kind of sucks a lot lately. And getting away from it sometimes is really vital. And if you're going to bring a bunch of horse shit real world stuff in, well, that's not fun. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to like bring all your real world pretension in, that sucks. Hello, Kate. Who's Kate? The Serene. Who is Kate?
One
of yours?
Kate.
Hi, Kate. Welcome aboard, Kate. Ooh, we got another girl. Look out. We're in trouble now. Quick, put up the He-Man woman hater sign. No homers. But I have a strong appreciation for Sean's understanding of AD&D. I have a strong appreciation for Cody's historical knowledge of gaming and watching him go on this adventure that he's going on of exploring the history of gaming. I have a strong appreciation for Chris's willingness to write his own game and promote the living shit out of it to the point where I'm just like, I don't feel I'll ever be good at what I'm doing because of the level that I see him doing that I'm never going to be able to achieve, but I also wouldn't want to achieve. But you know, like that's the difference. I appreciate that. It's fucking.
I don't even think I'm doing enough.
See, there you go. You think you're not doing enough. I'm like, man, please, you Len Harrow this and Len Harrow that. And I want to know what is Len Harrow? Where does this name come from? Why did you call your game Len Harrow?
I actually, somebody asked me that question on Monday, and my answer is, I really don't know where the Len part came from, which is funny because I never knew a Len until I met your group. But I like the whole idea of the word harrow, like it was a harrowing adventure. Yeah. And I tried a lot of different words at the beginning to make it sound right. And when I just put Len with it, Len Harrow, it worked for me. Everybody seemed to like it.
Now that works. Here's a question. What do you think if we got Len and Sean on here and then the rest of us just sat back and watched them? How many hours do you think we could go before, like, you know, we'd all lose sanity and just, you know, Cthulhu Fatan, like, you know, like at what point would we all just become, you know, fish people from
I think I could listen forever. Just listen to Sean explain to me like all the mysteries of AD&D First Edition. I would be enthralled the whole time.
And then Len counterpointing with game design philosophy, right. And you know, and the rest of us just going. But then we have to get Omanal in there so we can have someone who talks without breathing being part of the conversation. Hey, Omanal, I haven't said a shot at you all night, but I had to take one finally.
Sadly, I'm not the talker that many of you, like you, Bear, like you know how to talk. Like you know how to talk off the cuff, right? You've got the radio training. I'm more generally, unless I'm talking with something that I'm very familiar with. It's like I'd like to sit back and script what I'm about to say if you don't mind.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. It's not radio training. It's just radio training honed the skill that I got from being a maritimer. You know, it's the Celtic blood and the storytelling, and that's what I was raised with. So that's how we learn.
I did one whole week of radio training in journalism school, then followed the print path. So.
Yes, Sean does need to narrate one ebooks and send the MP3s to Cody. No, Sean needs to narrate what you need to do, Sean. I swear to God, you would get 1 million fucking followers. Is you know they always go, let's read, and then they read the books.
Mm-hmm.
You do that with the first edition, but then each section explain it to us afterwards.
Yeah.
And the philosophy behind it. The 20-part, 300-part series, whatever it would turn out to be, man, people would fucking watch. I'm telling you.
Like, well, I'm going to start with the combat section. It's actually a 14 or 15-part section. So I'm going to break down each element of combat like in its own video rather than one big video explaining the whole thing, right?
Just let me know when you get to this one. That's all I want to
know. What do you want to know from that one?
I just want to hear you talk about it.
No, I only use small portions of it.
Sorry,
I only use portions of Unearthed Arcana. Like I've gone through it, and I don't like the Cavalier. I don't allow it, but I don't mind the Barbarian or the Thief Acrobat. The Barbarian, I agree with you that it should be a culture, not a class. So I have the class Barbarian is very specifically a spirit. Okay.
All that. Night Squirrel, take care, man. Thanks for the super chats and thanks for being part of the event, guys. We made it almost. We were $33 shy of getting the number. C'est la vie. And I'm going to do something with that next week. We'll see. I'm going to bring that around again. But yeah, go ahead.
Cheers, Squirrel. Yeah, I was about to say the Barbarian from Unearthed Arcana. It is a spirit warrior of a barbarian tribe, whereas anybody can be from the tribe, but the class is a special warrior that's been imbued with the gods and the spirits of the tribe's ancestors. That's why they have the special abilities, right?
I just hate the name Barbarian. You call it a Slayer, and I'm good. You know what I mean? It's that simple. You just change it to Slayer, and you take that Cull thing from. I love the Kevin Sorbo Cull movie is not a great movie, but it's
but it's fun. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
It's exactly what De Laurentiis wanted to do with Conan. That basically Oliver Stone and John Milius and Basil they did the music. Conspired to not let him do to the movie, so he got to do it his way, which was all sound and all that kind of stuff. But that opening bit when they're giving Cull shit for fighting with an axe because civilized men use
swords. Yeah,
that's the Slayer to me, right? The Slayer uses the axe because the axe is the superior fucking weapon, and it is, by the way. it is the superior weapon.
Fun
I'd argue
fact.
that.
Fun fact that noble who's giving him shit, the blonde haired bearded
Yeah.
guy, he's that's Terry Silver from the Cobra Kai and from
Yes, it is.
Karate Kid 3. Yeah,
Thomas
Yes, it
Ian
is.
Goodman. Yeah.
I was last years old when I realized that.
Have you ever seen the riff tracks Karate Kid 3 when they do their track on Karate Kid 3, the Terry Silver one?
No, I haven't
No.
seen that one.
Jesus Christ! At one point when he's on the phone and he's talking, he's like, "Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot." You know, they're like, "I wish I was as excited about anything in my life as this guy is about this."
Yeah.
Just
gotta watch
They even addressed that in Cobra Kai when Terry's talking about how how coked up he was that he was going after a fucking teenager, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, that's a good way to justify it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, gentlemen, I think we've had our fill of sacred cow burgers. What do you think?
I had a burger
Sure.
before we started, so yeah, I'm full. Yeah.
Yeah, it was made of 2E burger, 2E cow. Chris, anything you need to promote? Anything coming up? Anything we need to know about?
Just my show, my channel from the hill. We've got lots of stuff going on. Tomorrow I'm doing Endless Quest books and me, so
Nice.
that should be fun. I'm looking at all my Endless Quest books and reading one at the end.
We'll give him a sub. Let's get him up to 1,000, guys. We can do it. Come on. Cody, what you got? What's happening?
So Sunday, I'm starting my old school Essentials game. 7
not
o'clock
playing in
Central
it.
Time. Bear's not playing in it.
Swear. I
Bear's
promise
not
you,
playing
I
in it.
will not be showing up in that game ever.
But he's welcome to if he wants to. I am also starting. I did a video announcement about it, but I'll do it here because I want everybody involved in it that I can. Me and my friends are going to be doing a reading, basically a book club of the Lord of the Rings. So if anybody wants to join us, we're going to read through the Lord of the Rings. We're going to read basically 6 chapters over a period of 2 weeks, and then we're all going.
That's how long it takes to read 6 chapters from Lord of the Rings.
I guess if you're a slow reader. It's really not that bad.
I know. I've read it.
Yeah, no, I get the joke. 6. So yeah, we're going to basically do 3 chapters a week, and then every other week we're going to discuss it on my channel, and I'm going to invite people in live to discuss it if they want to, and hopefully everybody gets involved in the chat. It should be a lot of fun.
Tempted. I'm
I know
so
my schedule,
tempted.
man.
We're going to start that on the 22nd.
Cool. All right, and guys, let's get Cody up to 1,000. Come on, guys, head over to Cody's channel, head over to Chris's channel, subscribe to them, get them up to 1,000. Let's make this look. They deserve their $4 a month from Google, just like the rest of us. Come on. Sean, what you got going on? What's coming up, sir?
Well, I got a big move coming, so it's going to cut into my video making time, but I'm hoping to get all of my backlog of OSE recaps caught up before November. So that's 8 that have to be caught up. So I'm got to do them in blocks, and I got another dog sitting gig coming up, so that might actually afford me a little time. Because this dog I know and is not as time demanding as the previous dog, which was whining at me every hour to go do something. Yes, and I got an AD&D game coming up on Sunday, which
Nice.
should be fun. They've hunted down the infamous Bargle and potentially going to take him down once and for all. It's exciting.
Nice.
Bargle becomes a villain in all of my games at some point.
Very nice.
How many times can you kill him? I don't think enough.
Nah, never enough. I, on the other hand, have a game on Friday night, I think. Don't we have a game on Friday night? Who's
Yep.
playing in the
Yes.
Friday night game? It's you two playing in the Friday night game, aren't you?
Correct.
We need to now work on the other 2 guys in that game to convince them we need to switch to Bastard Sword now.
I agree.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but you got to convince the other 2, especially Len, because Len's picky. No, Len would help, I'm sure. But other than that, I got not much else going on. Like Sean, I've got a big move coming up in the next couple of weeks, so my video availability is going to get less as I get closer to October 1st, and then we'll see how the internet is in the new apartment. Could be the death of the channel, for the live stuff. Could turn into just I only upload videos. We'll see, because I've got shit internet there, and sadly, the high speed's not available in that neighborhood. So, I mean, high speed, the real high speed like I have right now. So we'll see what happens, but that's all in the future. As for the super chats, I am going to carry tonight forward to the next one. So we only have to do $33 worth of super chats next Wednesday night, and we'll give away 2 cards. You heard it here. I said it. Cody will keep my feet to the fire on that, and Chris will tut me if I don't do it properly, and Sean will be like, hey. So it'll get done. That's the way it's going to work. So we're going to be doing that next week if we get that 33. Guys, thank you for hanging out tonight. Always fun. Always a good time. I enjoy these conversations a lot. Everybody who hung out and chatted with us tonight, thank you for that. All the super chats, thank you so much for that as well. And I guess peace, love, geek, and we'll see you when we see you. All right,
Strike a pose, gentlemen.